Now is the chance to use reliable energy to grow your money with the Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. Our new investment product offers competitive returns, no maintenance fees, and flexible online access to your money. Make the reliable investment in reliable energy. The Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. To find out more, go online to reliabilityinvestment.com. That's reliabilityinvestment.com.
Right now at T-Mobile, get an awesome iPhone XR on us when you bring your family over and trade in your old device. Because whether you have mom, dad, or a friend on your mind, it's a gift so bold and brilliant, you'll want to keep it for yourself. And most importantly, it's on us in 6 vibrant colors. Plus, with unlimited everything from T-Mobile, the awesome iPhone XR will have everyone snapping, streaming, and sharing to their heart's content all year long. But don't wait. It's only for a limited time. So visit a store or call 1-800-T-Mobile and get iPhone XR on us.
If congested, customers using more than 50 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds due to prioritization. Video at 480p via 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers plus tax. Qualifying trade-in, port-in, service, and finance agreement required. Contact us before canceling or credit stop and remaining balance due. 64 gigs, 0 down, plus $31.25 per month for 24 months. Pre-credit price, $749.99, 0% APR. One offer per account.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. And this show is brought to you by SubashTechnosis.com. Hey, big shout out to Subash Technosis. These guys did a big favor for me this week. Really cool guys. If you need a website designed, search engine optimization, content writing, data entry, press releases, all kinds of, they can even do your customer service for you. Anything you need outsourced for cheap labor, where they can do it on a computer, or they could do it on a phone, or they could do repetitious kind of scut work for you. Subash Technosis, these are the guys. Now the thing is, when you contact them, you got to tell them, hey, I heard about you from Ed Opperman. I've known Subash for 10 years. They're going to cut you a good deal that way, okay? I also have some big announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks of other services that we're doing together in joint ventures. One of them is it's already been very, very successful for myself. So once I know that it's working for me, okay, we're talking like $500 in one day, okay, but once I find out it's working for me, everyone's gonna offer a new service to all our fans and listeners out there. The fans, almost lost the fans tonight. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Hughes. I don't know how you pronounce your name, Hugues. My buddy from the chat. Dude, I'm just playing with you, man. Okay, take it easy. Okay, don't get yourself all upset. All right, but you're not getting a refund, no matter what. No refunds. All right, okay. Let's see. Gonna have a new segment to the show that we're gonna do. But before we get to that, tomorrow, 5 p.m., I'm gonna have Clive Doyle as my guest. He's the guy. He was one of the Branch Davidians. He's got burns, dirty, all his arms all burned, from being in the compound there when they were attacked by the ATF. And he lost his daughter, his young child. He lost his daughter in that fire. Testified before Congress. And does very few interviews. He wrote a book years ago, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It was so long ago, But very little media since then. So I've been trying to get this guy for a long, long time. I finally got him. Got a hold of his phone number about 3 years ago. He never answers his phone. So I call him once a week. I call him up until finally I got him. I don't give up. We always get our man. I'm like, who was that, Klondike Cat? Was it Klondike Cat always gets his man? Oh, Klondike Cat always gets his mouse, right? Wasn't it? And the Mountie guy. Anyway, let's get serious here. No fun. Okay, that's going on. Got that coming up on Saturday. Okay, got that. There is going to be a new segment of the show where I explain what I was trying to talk about last week. Okay? Because, I tell you, you do a show, especially this live portion, or even the portion of the show where you're interviewing someone, and then you get so many emails all week long. People, they just miss what you're trying to say, or they don't understand, they don't get it. They don't understand the point of the story. And I tell the story because there's a point at the end, When I had the woman on from the adoption agency last week, I think her name was Lynn Johansson, something like that. And we were discussing, and you got to Google the name of that adoption agency we were talking about because they're heavily involved in the Pizzagate story. So there's a reason for everything I do. And, toward the end of the show, I was running out of questions, and then I thought of something that I wanted to add to I wanted to tell a story. But then as soon as I hung up on her, I forgot what it was. And what it was this. And it's about the crisis pregnancy centers and these anti-abortionists that seem to want to use churches as their base of operations. You might recall the story that I told you about where Victoria had this friend, I think his name was Isaiah, they used to play basketball together, and he wasn't being raised by his mother, he was being raised by his sisters. And they used to come by my house and bring snacks over and bring wine, and we would watch The Real Housewives of New Jersey together. I think I told the story on the air. I think I did, because it is a pretty funny story. And then they surprised me, because I would always be talking about church, this and that, stuff like that, and things I was active in, and my faith. And they surprised me one time by coming to my church, and they ran into this guy. That guy that I told you the story about, he was part of the crisis pregnancy stuff. He was part of that anti-abortion group. And he's the one that kind of, he gave him a hard time when they were walking in. He was commenting about the way they were dressed. Then he started talking about this crazy confrontation he had with somebody at an abortion clinic when he was protesting. And he really turned them off from church. And I told that story to illustrate how we in the alternative media kind of turn people off, and we inoculate people from searching further. Like it's almost like it's like this. It's like with this Pizzagate thing we have going on now, where okay, fine, we're onto something here. There's something very serious. People need to understand that if I was doing this Pizzagate investigation and this kind of stuff that we're finding, the stuff that we know is real, and let's say it was in a custody evaluation case, okay, in a divorce, in custody. This would be a gold mine. But people say, well, where's the smoking gun? When you find this kind of stuff, if I could find this in a custody case, these kind of images and this kind of activity going on, this kind of behavior, these jokes, or even the art, this sort of stuff, this would be gold to walk into a custody and present this to a therapist who's a custody evaluator. Are you kidding me? So people say, well, where's the smoking gun? Trust me. This is gold. But then the next step is now you get a subpoena, you get a court order, you get the search warrants. It has to be taken to the next level. You need to interview people. You need to go find. I don't want to tip off how you do investigations, but for people to say there's nothing there, because this is oh yeah, it looks funny, but there's not enough. Trust me, this would be a gold mine to find this. So now I brought up about the guy who was the what do you call? I told that story to illustrate about how, we inoculate people and we kind of turn people off from the message. Now this guy, he's a well-meaning guy, but he turned off these young girls from the message, turned them away from church. When they told me, they were so upset about my church, and they said, I'll never go back to that church. This man stood up and he did this and that. And out of context, I can understand. We blew it that day with these young girls who, we're just normal young girls. Now, when she was talking about how, if you're a young woman pregnant, in crisis, you don't have a husband or a boyfriend or family to help you out, there's financial concerns, and you don't think you can take care of that baby. Well, where do you go? Well, it does seem logical to send them to these crisis pregnancy centers because they're going to help you put the baby in adoption. But now we find out there's no regulation, there's no oversight of what's going on with these adoptions. And I says, well, what do you think? She says, well, the people in these centers, they're untrained, and it's too porous for abuse that they could be sending these kids off to adoption agencies and getting a commission. And so I remembered something. You might recall I had that friend who had the baby, her grandson was in foster care, and that the parents, the foster parents, did a murder-suicide. He murdered the other foster baby right next to this baby and killed himself. And my friend got custody of the grandson. Well, that little boy, it turned out he needed an operation on his head, a cranio, it's called. Like where your brain grows too big for your skull, and they have to carve your skull and cut your skull open. Look it up. They're called cranio kids. And before he got the operation, he was banging his head. He was hitting his head because of the pain, inside of his head. Cutest little kid in the world, by the way. And so she was just like a wreck. She was exhausted because she was taking care of that one. She was taking care of another grandkid, and she had no car. And all this stuff. And we said, well, me and Vic will come over, we'll help you out. And I says, I bet you. And at the same time, too, there's a Catholic church right by where we live. And I think me and Vic were walking at the time. We didn't have a car. And they had one of these outdoor fairs, And they had a big RV, the Crisis Pregnancy Center, parked there. And all these old, women and old ladies just hanging around and sitting there. And I says, something? I bet you if we went over there, they're dying. They're looking for something to do. They're dying to take care of kids and help little poor, unfortunate little babies. Let's go over there and talk to them. I'm sure they'll come down and help Maria. And, you know me. I think I'm a pretty personable kind of guy, and I can kind of express my idea to someone and get them motivated and get them going. And I tried. I called over. I went down in person. Nothing. I called up a couple of different churches where they know me. Well, that's not what we do, Ed. No, that's not how it works. No, we don't have the resources. We don't have the time. We don't have the supervision for that kind of thing. We don't have we can't take every excuse in the book. We could get no one to come and help this family. So that's the story I wanted to tell last Saturday when we ended the call with Lynn Johansson. One thing got me in a really good mood this week. Okay? Believe it or not, once in a while I'm in a good mood. We have two listeners to this show, these two young women from Tennessee. And they're just the nicest. It's funny because they're like best friends, and they live in Tennessee, and they're both fans of the show. Not fans, I hate to say fans, but they're both listeners to the show, and they're both Bernie supporters down there too. And it's really, and I remember during the election and the primaries, they're all upset because everyone in their town was all Trump supporters, and they're the only Bernie supporters, and they're fighting the world, and they're taking everybody out, and it's just, really cool to see, and smart women. And they become friends of mine on Facebook, and I even talked to them on the phone a couple of times, different things like that. We've chatted, and really impressive women. And wouldn't you know it, they live right there in Tennessee where that fire just happened, that big giant fire. And I just started seeing these posts. I didn't know anything about any fire. I started seeing these posts on Facebook about, it's raining at Walmart, thank God. I say, what is she talking about? And then I found out that they're in the middle of this big giant forest fire right by Dolly Parton's thing over there. But thank God these two women are safe, and their families are safe. And I think even their businesses are safe, and they've gotten out of this alive. But I can tell they're a little traumatized, They have a friend named Ryan Waldo who lost his home. And if you go to GoFundMe and you search that, Wildfire Relief by Ryan Waldo, you can make a little donation. I know when my friend Reverend Knight, when his house burned down up in Maine, And I mentioned it a couple of weeks in a row, and I promoted it on Facebook. I know a lot of people helped him out, and it was a big difference in his life. So this guy here, Ryan Waldo, he's friends with a couple of really cool friends of the show. And, I'd say if anything had happened to either of our friends, I would have been just heartbroken, because they're the kind of listeners that are just really cool. They get what's going on. They don't nag me. They don't bug me. And they're just cool, and you chat with them like normal people. And it's really nice to have people like that around. And I tell you, I would have been heartbroken if we would have lost either of these girls. So thank God for that. But their friend did lose his home. He's alive, but he lost his home. Ryan Waldo, Wildfire Relief, on GoFundMe.com. Boy, the time is flying. Okay. Time flies when you're having fun. We had a loss this week. A great, iconic, historical figure. There's a lot of controversy. Some people say, okay, he was a dictator. Some people say, no, he was a hero. Right? And I have to come on the side of, I agree. There is an element of dictatorship with Florence Henderson. If you look at the way she ran that home with the Brady Bunch there like a dictator, I would say that Florence Henderson was a dictator. Now, the other one, okay, the Cuban Revolution. Isn't it wonderful how all these people who are not Cuban are concerned with the Cuban Revolution? I have not been getting into a debate over this and an argument, or very little, because there's just so much financial motivation to demonize the Cuban Revolution. There's so much disinformation. There's so much personal knee-jerk reaction to it that it's just not something that's worth debating. I would say this: let the Cubans worry about the Cuban Revolution. Okay, I think they're smart people, they're very industrious people, very made an impact on the world for a tiny little island. Made an impact on the world in a, I think, mostly positive way against overwhelming odds. Okay, and one thing we got to look at is when you have everyone in the mainstream media telling you that this man Fidel Castro is the devil and he's worse than Hitler and he did this and he did that and he's horrible and everything. He's held him captive and prisoner over there and hostage and all this stuff, right? Just think what they say about Pizzagate. Just think what they say about everything else that we know, okay? And try to apply that to your thinking in this, just for a minute. There's other sides to this story. And the people in Cuba to this day, days later, they're lined up to go to pay respects. And that's enough of that. Okay. Oh. We had Nico House. I love Nico House. And he does a show right before mine on here. And he's trying to explain about how he thinks that Jill Stein is doing the right thing here with this recount. I'll just leave it up to them. I don't know. He's more in with these people than I am. To me, it looks a little suspicious. But we'll see. One thing that blew my mind this week is Bobby Seale, one of the original founders of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. I watched a C-SPAN interview with him where he was endorsing Hillary. It was before the election. I was really shocked to see that.
Now is the chance to use reliable energy to grow your money with the Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. Our new investment product offers competitive returns, no maintenance fees, and flexible online access to your money. Make the reliable investment in reliable energy. The Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. To find out more, go online to reliabilityinvestment.com. That's reliabilityinvestment.com.
You're with your baby girl. You've been practicing your mamas and dadas for weeks. And now she looks up and begins to mouth her very first words. This is the moment you've been waiting for. It's time to visit your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer and test drive the all-new GLE. With the first era of the Mercedes-Benz user experience and optional third-row seating for your whole family. Smart mama. Smart dada. Visit MBUSA.com/GLE to learn more. Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Some equipment described as optional.
But I guess he's got like 80 years old. I guess his perspective on these things are a little different than mine. I've been really troubled lately. And it's not just me. I spoke to two people today. By the way, this woman, Daniela Walls, we talked for like 4 hours today. And I heard some really things that are very disturbing that she doesn't want me to talk about. Learn some new things in private. We talked like 30 minutes before the show, then like 90 minutes after the show. And the show was only supposed to be an hour, too. I did a show with Chris Milligan this week from Trine Day Press. I did an hour with him. I think it was yesterday. That was going to play tonight. I was going to play an hour with him, an hour with the other one. But the thing with the Chris Milligan show is I know he had something because he contacted me and says, I want to come on. I want to talk about this thing about the election. But I don't think he ever really got out and expressed what he wanted to get out. I think I maybe kept kind of distracting him. I'm not sure. But we'll probably play that during the week, or maybe it'll go in the member section, and we'll see what happens, what you think of that. But I talked to Chris yesterday. I talked to Daniela today. Then I talked to a couple of other people, And it's amazing how many people are saying, I'm thinking about getting out of here. We see there's a chill in the air, man. There's a hostile vibe going on here that's very distressing. And when you see this last night, Trump does this rally, this victory rally, where he gets up there and he pounds his chest, and his supporters cheer, yeah, great orange leader, oh, great orange one, A year ago, we saw Trump come down the escalator just like the Simpsons cartoon. And he stands up there to a paid crowd. It paid him $50 a head to go in there and cheer him on. And he goes on a rant about dirty, filthy Mexicans. Oh, they're rapists, they're drug smugglers, they're criminals. And everyone just, their mouths dropped open. Oh my God, what is this in America? And you start seeing these things, And as soon as I saw it, I said, that's the face of fascism. And I talked about it. I said, these are dangerous times ahead. But as the years gone on, and we watch these speeches over and over, and one more ridiculous thing after another, and I've been there in those crowds when the press, when the audience turns around and boos the press, boo, and they got more and more aggressive as time went on. Okay? And you know me, how easily I get along with people. So of course, I had a great reaction to the audience booing me. I had a big smile on my face. Me and the audience. So, take a look at the clock here. I tell you these stories, to try and illustrate my points. And some people get it, some people don't. And a lot of these stories, I came up with them and I remembered them because when Victoria was little and we used to go hiking, we used to go on these really long hikes, she would say, Dad, tell me a story about when you were a little boy. And now, I try and, because the guy says last week, he said, well, that was random. What was that show about, Because I was telling the story last week about, what was it? Right. I was telling a story about how I own this business with 100 employees, and I caught them cheating, stealing from me. And within a short period of time, I had to fire all these guys and train new people and hire new people. And I was trying to illustrate to you that I have some experience being an employer, doing job interviews, hiring people, training new people, having to fire people. And that in my perspective, with that background, I have a different perspective on people's work ethic and people's inability to work, you know? Sometimes you're just unable to work because you can't get along with the people around you, because you just can't. You got personal problems, you got personal issues that you're unemployable. So, but other people think they're saying, well, if they need to be motivated, they need job training, they need to do, and then everybody will be able to work. So, no, there's a great percentage of people that just can't function. It's too much for them. They can't do it. Now we can exterminate them, put them out. We got Trump now coming up. That's what's coming up. That's next, because there's going to be all you hear is about his entitlement programs. You have to reduce entitlement. I don't know what they think we're going to do with these people. Have more homeless people, more insane people wandering the streets, ranting and raving. Create more and more obstacles to just living in peace, that we create more and more crazy people. Because I think 90% of the problems why people are snapping and doing all this stuff is because you can't even buy and sell a car like you could 10 years ago. You got to go back to the DMV 20 times and smog checks and all this craziness. Like the daily responsibilities of life have become exasperated and exaggerated and magnified 100 times from like 15 years ago. Just like 10, 15 years ago, you go into the bank, you had a problem with the bank. They take care of it for you right there. Now it's back and forth. We got to call this number, go home. You got to sit on the phone for an hour. I just changed my long distance service. It took me like 8 hours to change my long distance service. I was going to change it from Cox to Vonage, and I wound up saying, what, Cox is going to give me a better deal. Call back Cox. Can I have that deal you offered me before? No, now, back and forth for days. Everything's just gone crazy. But I tell you these stories, and one is to illustrate the point I'm trying to get to, right? And nobody gets it, so now I'm going to have to tell you the stories twice every week. Then the other thing, too, is that, one day I'm going to be gone, and Vic used to love these stories when she was a kid, so I wanted to have this archive she can come back to and find. The third reason is I'm getting Alzheimer's. I'm not going to remember these stories in another couple. I think I got about a year left, man, before I totally lose my mind. So I'm going to need to remind myself of this stuff. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. Okay, we'll be right back after this. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. Online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we could trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anton LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Opperman Report.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. it seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air, you get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Now, I've told you stories about my crazy Cuban relatives, but I don't think I've ever told you too many stories about my crazy relatives on my father's side, which were Irish and German. That's how I got the name Opperman. It's a German Lutheran name. But I never met my grandfather who had the name Opperman. I met a step-grandfather who had the name Vogel, Hans Vogel, very German. My grandmother was Irish, from Ireland. So she had a little Irish accent, and he had this German accent. And they lived on 86th Street in Manhattan. And, typical grandparents, they spoil their grandkids, I love going there, But they lived in this apartment in Manhattan that I think when we first started visiting them, they only had cold water, because I can remember the bathtub was in the kitchen. It was a big metal bathtub, and it had like a lid on it, like a big metal lid over it that I guess you could use it as a table or something, I guess. I think they had it. There was definitely a kitchen table. And then there was this other bathtub with a lid on it. But I remember taking a bath in that bathtub where they would heat up the water on the stove and pour it into the tub. And for me, this is an adventure. This is the greatest thing in the world. I was like 4 years old. Oh my God! Oh, look, it's a big pot of steaming, boiling water coming at me here. This is great. I'm like, I throw some carrots in here in the tub with me, And not only that, now they had the bathtub was in the kitchen, and in the bathroom, which was nearby the kitchen too, there was a little tiny closet that had a toilet in it. And to flush that toilet, it was like with the pulling that cable, that chain. You had to pull the chain on it. Like the tank of water was up really high over your head, and you had to pull that chain. And I can remember too when I was kid, I would hang on the chain until it broke. I broke the chain a couple of times. But my grandparents loved me.
Say Metro by T-Mobile got the best deal in wireless, and it's all for you, all for me. Just switch quickly, because Metro has 2 lines for $80 and 2 Samsung Galaxy J7 Star phones for free, plus Amazon Prime included. That's the way wireless should be, only at Metro.
Plus sales tax and activation fee. $50 plus rate plan required. Not valid for numbers currently on T-Mobile network or on Metro in past 90 days. Offer subject to change. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Amazon Prime has a $12.99 per month value. Restrictions apply. See store for details and terms and conditions.
The Starlight Lounge presents An Evening with the Progressive Box.
Old moon, yeah. That's Hugo, tickling the ivories. He just saved by bundling home and auto with Progressive. Gonna finally buy a ring for that gal of yours, Hugo? Send her my condolences. Hi-oh! This next one's for you two. There's a burglar in my heart. Thank you.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
It was like that kind of an old-fashioned toilet that they had in The Godfather, where, up it was high up in the movie. Also, this apartment, everything was so old, and the linoleum was all old and everything. And I think they call it a railroad flat, because the way the rooms went, there was one hallway that went down the middle of the whole apartment. From the kitchen, you came in, there was a living room. There was a kitchen. Then there was a bedroom, and another TV room, they called it. But you had to go through the bedroom to get to the other bedroom, down to the TV room. You walked right down the middle. There was doors, but you had to walk through the middle of it to get from one room to the next. And I think they call that a railroad flat. But that's what it was like. And my grandfather, Hans, I believe he was a doorman at one time. Because he loved to tell me about, when he would take me out walking and through Manhattan, because they lived right by Central Park. You could walk to Central Park from their house. And he used to take us to the park. There were some rocks there you could climb and stuff. And there was a park with like monkey bars and stuff like that, but we only went there a few times. He used to go let us climb on these rocks, and then we would tell my parents, "Hey, Grandpa, let us climb on the rocks." And my parents got all mad at him. And then he says, "What do you rat me out for to your parents? What do you tell them? Don't tell anybody what we do." And he was a fun guy too, because he used to drink. He drank a lot, and he would always had jokes. Like he would remember jokes all the time, and he was always telling jokes, like, those kind of long jokes that are like a story jokes, 2 guys walk into a bar, those kind of jokes. He always had a new one, and he loved telling them. And when we would walk from the house to the park, he would take us walking around through Manhattan. He knew everyone. He knew the guy selling the hot dogs. He knew the doorman. He knew every doorman. And he told me, he says, what you do is you make friends with all the doormen, because they can do a lot of things for you. They can help you out with stuff. If you ever get into a fight, someone tries to rob you, you can just call them over and they'll help you. Get to know your neighbors, because if you need something, you borrow something, you know them, your friends. And that was another thing, too, is all the neighbors would come by and visit. And walking up and down, because you had to walk up the 4, 5, 7 flights, whatever it was, no elevator in that building. And all the neighbors would come out and say hello to us. "Oh, it's the little grandkids. Oh, let's see." So, and he taught me, too, at that little age. He says, if you got a car, and, you don't want to pay for parking, you need to park, you can find a doorman if there's a space. If you can't find a space, you give the doorman, $2, he'll watch the car, and you won't get a ticket. You could park there right in front of the building. I did that my whole life. I never paid for parking. I always went to the doorman or parked in front of a hotel or in front of a doorman building. I did that for years in Manhattan. He taught me and my sister how to play chess, and he taught us the right way, And he was very concerned about us learning how to be good chess players. He taught us how to play gin rummy, too. And again, with that, too, we would play for hours, and he was very concerned. Like, he wouldn't let us win. When he would play against us in chess, he wouldn't let us win, or be sore losers. We had to be good, stuff like that, My grandmother was from Ireland, and she was a big supporter of the Irish Republican Army. And we didn't start talking about that till I was a teenager, when I understood what that was about. But she was very delicate young woman, very small, and very frail, like 90 pounds, you know. And she worked as a nanny. And pretty much that period of her life, she worked for the same family. She was this nanny for this family, you know. And the little boy, she would talk about him sometimes. The little boy's name, believe it or not, was Christopher Robbins. It was the same name as the boy in Winnie the Pooh. Okay? And I met him when we were adults at my grandmother's funeral. And you could just, as soon as I met this guy, you know, you could tell came from a very wealthy family, you know, he was very soft-spoken, very educated. And he said to me, he says, you know, he said, see, you know, it was, here's this guy who grew up the same age as me, by the way, we're the same age. And, because, you know, so he loved my grandmother like, you know, his own grandmother, because that was his nanny growing up, and his babysitter. And he said something, like, he says, I always, you know, because we met one time, or maybe twice. And he said, I would always think about, you know, boy, that she has a grandson my same age, same as me. And I remembered that I had a run-in with this kid. They did take me to play with this kid one time. And we had some kind of just a typical little, it was literally in a sandbox that we had a little altercation. It was like 4 years old. It definitely wasn't kindergarten yet. I know that. And there was some kind of, and I remember too that he, because I used to call my grandmother Grandma, and he was calling her like Nana or Nanny, something like that, you know. And I was like, well, that's not her name. What, you don't even know. It's my grandma. I know what her name is, you know. And we got into some little fight, you know. And after, he must have went back and told his parents or something happened, and we were never allowed to play together again. Me and this kid. Because here you got this kid come from a privileged family. Like, my grandmother worked for him. You know what I mean? She was his employee. And it's kind of a turnoff to me. So, my grandfather lived in Germany and saw the rise of Hitler. And the way he met my grandmother was in Ireland. Because in order to get out of Germany, the Irish would get fake paperwork to the Germans who were trying to escape Germany. And I don't know how this all came up, you know, but he would always tell me, he would tell this story about Hitler. And he says, you know, I went to one of the rallies because everyone was talking about Hitler. Hitler was just coming up. And when I went to the rally, he saw the people's reaction and their frantic behavior in worship of this dictator. And it wasn't a dictator at the time, not yet, you know, but this charismatic leader. And he said, I went there, and I saw that they didn't have the German flag. They had a Hitler flag, and they had Hitler armbands on their arms. All these guys, and they weren't Germans. They were worshiping Hitler. And he said, I knew I had to get out of there. He says, I saw it. I could feel it. I had to get out of there. And that's why he left Germany. But he couldn't just leave at that point, because when people wanted to leave, they were stopping him. So he had to get the fake paperwork from Ireland. You know? So passing through Ireland, that's how they got here to America. Now, I have that feeling right now. You know? And even just last night, because I've been thinking about this all week long. I wanted to examine this, but and today it's coming to a head today because I'm talking to people all day long talking about leaving this country. That it's time to get out. That things are only getting worse. That it's not going to be safe. Last night, there was a discussion on Facebook, and it was about Trump. I forget what it was. And someone said, well, at this point, no one cares what the press has to say anymore because they're all liars. And so we're just give Mr. Trump a chance because he just saved these jobs. And no one cares what the press has to say because he just saved 1,000 jobs there at this air conditioner factory. And I said, well, you know what? I've been there at those rallies where they turn around. He goes, well, and I said, so, and you know, Trump took my press credentials. He says, well, you must have done something to deserve it. And then I went on to explain, no, you know, as a matter of fact, now he released it. He even used my information in his opposition research. They contacted me for people's information. And he says, well, you may survive if you're one of the good ones. This isn't a discussion we had 5 years ago. That it's okay to, we're just going to call the press liars. And you listen to some of these alternative media hosts and stuff like that talking about how Trump's going to round up all these pedophiles in Pizzagate and we're going to put them in FEMA camps. And they're going to hang. And Lady Gaga's going to hang. And Elton John's going to hang. No trials, no nothing. Trump's going to do it. There is a segment of these Trump supporters that want a dictator. They want a dictator. They want a fascist dictator who can solve all the problems through brutal means. Round up the Muslims, of course. Round up the Mexicans, of course, because they're all rapists. And the Muslims are all terrorists. But the journalists, round them up too. They're next. And who's after that? You know, the trades union, the union, you know, who's next? There's something in the air, guys. With this business about, and he's telling me he's going to lock up Hillary. You know, this isn't something we've had in this country in my lifetime. And we should be outraged about this. It's been a year long of craziness, like nothing we've ever seen before, with the FBI involved in a political investigation, where they both are under lawsuits and indictments, all kinds of stuff. Both candidates. We know they're all crooks. We know that it's a new world order. We know that the banks, Goldman Sachs, he brings in Goldman Sachs to run the whole cabinet, and the other half of the cabinet is brought in by Army generals. This doesn't make you nervous? This is like another day at the park? It's not. And, you know, there was a lot of controversy last week. You know, Pierce Redmond said he didn't believe Pizzagate. He was worried about it because people were sharing and circulating child pornography, and it was like a witch hunt. And it is. And you see those people saying, well, Trump's going to... It was started by Trump people, by the way, you know, that whole thing. The Reddit group. Well, Trump, we got to tell Mr. Trump because he's going to fix it for us. He's going to get all those Democrats that are all pedophiles. You know? That's a mob mentality, too. And then when I got mixed up in it, oh, Ed Opperman's going to help investigate. Well, Ed Opperman's no good. He hates Trump. You know? He says Soros is good. All this craziness. Mob mentality. It's a witch hunt. In many ways. I'm not saying, listen, there's a lot of evidence there. But this isn't the way you investigate something. This isn't the way you prosecute something criminally. So what do we do? And I'm not the only one feeling this. I'm not the only one saying this. And there's things going on with people being threatened, people are being sued, people, you know, Reverend Pinckney being in prison. There's a lot of stuff going on, guys. Before this and during this. You know, you got these lawsuits against Trump no one's talking about. The Epstein case, no one's talking. Epstein's going to be deposed in a couple of weeks. No one's talking about it. I could disappear tonight. Who's going to talk about it? And then you got the other crap too. You know, Max Spears, that's a bunch of crap. This guy had nothing to do with anything. There's a greater concern here that we need to have. And what are we going to do about it? I don't know. But it may be.
Man, how can you afford gas for that big SUV?
I pay less for gas than everyone else. I got the free Get Upside Gas app and get up to 25 cents a gallon cash back every time I buy gas.
Hold on. You're getting up to 25 cents off a gallon with the free Get Upside Gas app while I'm paying full price?
You know it. People earned over $1 million last year. You just got to take a picture of your gas receipt and bam, up to 25 cents a gallon cash back.
You don't have to tell me twice. I'm downloading the free Get Upside Gas app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code NEXT for a 20-cent gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 45 cents a gallon on your next tank. Just download the free Get Upside app at the App Store or Google Play and use promo code NEXT. Save money on gas on every fill-up. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code NEXT. That's NEXT.
Man, how can you afford gas for that big SUV?
I pay less for gas than everyone else. I got the free Get Upside Gas app and get up to 25 cents a gallon cash back every time I buy gas.
Hold on. You're getting up to 25 cents off a gallon with the free Get Upside Gas app while I'm paying full price?
You know it. People earned over $1 million last year. You just got to take a picture of your gas receipt and bam, up to 25 cents a gallon cash back.
You don't have to tell me twice. I'm downloading the free Get Upside Gas app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code NEXT for a 20-cent gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 45 cents a gallon on your next tank. Just download the free Get Upside app at the App Store or Google Play and use promo code NEXT. Save money on gas on every fill-up. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code NEXT. That's NEXT.
Time for us to start leaving. The smart ones to get out. The things happen. In history, things have happened where people have been persecuted and arrested. Even in Cuba, too, the enemies of the state, you know, we're in prison. In Venezuela, enemies of the state had to be in prison. You know, right now, I'm an enemy of the state. Many of you are, too. Unless we're going to paint ourselves orange and go march in the streets and lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. You want to do that? Because what if there comes a time that if you're not doing it, then you're the enemy? And to be rounded up and thrown across the border behind the wall. What's to say if things are getting progressively in that direction, and if 1 year we could find it acceptable that there's a man, an orange man, who says that the Mexicans are rapists, what's going to happen next month or next year when this guy's on TV all day long and tweeting all day long with his generals behind him? They're going to make an exception for one of these generals who's a general right now, or he's been out of the service for 3 years, something like that. That they want to make an exception for him because you're not allowed to do this, but they're going to make an exception because that's good for us. That's good for you and for me, you know. And even with Standing Rock, well, the veterans are coming down. The veterans are going to come, and they're going to stand in between us and them. Like, that's a good thing, you know. Let's militarize that too, on both sides, you know. I was talking about Standing Rock before anybody was, because I could tell you right now, when I did that first show, I couldn't even copy and paste anything to put it in the title. No one was talking about it. No one. We had some of the first rallies here in Nevada for that. And I'm telling you, I got a bad feeling about it. The way it's going. For a lot of reasons. And I think it's just all part of this general bad feeling that's going through this nation right now. And I'm not the only one nervous, too. I'll tell you that. So, where do we go from here? Well, that's a good question. If there really is, 300 million of us, and just a couple of million of them, we win. You saw the crowds at the Bernie rallies, compared to the crowds for the fascist Hillary or the fascist Trump. We win. But we got to be smart. We got to really look at everything we're doing. We can't let this mob mentality take over and just sit back silently and let these people just think that, we're going to round people up. But can we reason with these people? Because I don't know. There was another, we had the case here with Kevin L. Child and the school board making those racist comments, and we went down there and we spoke out against them. There's just another incident here of a professor at UNLV saying that he was going to turn in Mexicans, there's no safe haven in his classroom. He's going to turn people in if you don't have your papers in order, because now we got a new leader, the great orange dictator. So, what do we do? Just let that pass? Or do we say, no, this is wrong? Hey, I think part of the problem, too, is that they're silencing the real opposition to all of this, Like, they make it seem like, if you're not a Trump supporter, then you're a Hillary supporter. And so much is just twisted and distorted. So, I can't leave this tonight with a word of encouragement, other than to say to you, I got a bad feeling. And I'm not the only one. And I'll tell you something else that makes me very nervous. Okay? And it's not just from today, but that more and more, like everyone knows I got my neck stuck out here, what I'm doing. But more and more people who I think got it all together, and are up there and doing things, are coming to me for advice, And it's like a little kid when you look around, there's no parents around, and you find out you're home alone, And I have that feeling too. It's really scary how many people, that should be. You think they got their act together, and they're coming to me. And the other thing, too, is one thing that I got to put out there is when people say to me, Ed, aren't you afraid of investigating Pizzagate? Aren't you afraid of investigating the Clintons? Aren't you afraid of doing this because you can get killed? You can get killed investigating anything. I'm working on something right now that's totally has nothing to do with it. It's not world changing. It helps a couple of people in their lives. But it's not world changing. I can get killed in this. Someone's going to be going to prison for about 6 years, I'm pretty sure. And that's good enough reason to kill somebody. plenty of reasons to kill people. So there's no, we have no, life has no guarantees. We're just the breath we breathe in, breathe out for the moment. It's all we can guarantee. After that, there's no guarantee. So at least, if you're going to lose your life, to do it for something worthwhile. But, in some cases, losing your life is probably the best way out because, to be thrown into a prison like Pinckney or prisons that could be 10 times worse than they are right now. The conditions in these prisons under Trump could be 10 times worse than they are now. Just think what we could have with these maniacs appointing the next Supreme Court judge. Oh, if you burn the flag, you should lose your citizenship. What the hell? This is craziness. So there's worse things than getting killed for investigating something. Your family could be tortured and kidnapped. You'd be thrown in a pit of a prison and tortured and kidnapped. And by the way, too, I just got to say one more thing. There is torture in Cuba. And there is kidnapping in Cuba and mistreatment of prisoners in Cuba. We know that for a fact. It happens at Guantanamo Bay. So no one can deny there's torture and murder and mistreatment of prisoners in Cuba. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I really do put a lot of time into this show, and I hope you appreciate it, because I do appreciate the audience. And no matter what, I'm going to continue with the member section, always. Even if I do leave the country or whatever, the member section will always go on. This live stuff, who knows? Because it seems to be a lot of hostility and problems, stalking, and all kind of craziness. I got my first letter from prison from this show. Prisoner wrote me a letter, All right, we're out of time, though. But listen, if you like the show, you support the show, you can send a donation to oppermanreport@gmail.com. I really love it, too, when I wake up like Sunday morning and a couple of donations come in, but Saturday morning, it really feels good. Join up the members section. That's what helps support the show. There's new content in the member section all the time. I just put in there from my old Chippendales act. I got some old pictures of me doing my Chippendales dancing and when I was a male stripper, and all those pictures in there. You can go in there and find them. So check those out tonight. And next coming up is Pierce Redmond.
They said we should just tell you to try McDonald's Buttermilk Crispy Chicken Biscuit for breakfast, and we shouldn't make a big deal out of it. But how can we not? It's crispy, juicy chicken on a warm buttermilk biscuit brushed with butter, and you can enjoy it for breakfast for only $3 on the McDonald's $1, $2, $3 menu? Oh, forget it. We're making this a big deal. That's more like it. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Just because it's called higher education doesn't mean high tuition costs have to be the norm. At Strayer University, we have the radical opinion that education should be affordable. With our graduation fund, you can earn up to 25% off your bachelor's degree tuition, making it all the more possible to succeed in today's world. Welcome to the future of education. Strayer University. Out with the old school. Strayer University is certified to operate by Chev.